Hey everybody, welcome to my Flash animation videos. My name is Jay Edry, and in this lesson we're going to be learning basic character animation techniques. So in this lesson what we're going to be doing is animating this character over here, just doing a head turn. It's very similar to our basic animation techniques we did, but now with a full body. So without further ado, let's get right to it. Alright, if you look in the top left over here, you'll notice that it says redditalien.fla file. This is a really quick Reddit alien rig I created to animate with. So I'm going to open that up and I'm going to show you what's inside. Inside you'll see under scene 1 there's one single symbol set to play once, and its first is set to 1. It's a graphic symbol, and this symbol is just pretty much the whole Reddit alien composed into one big symbol. And this is so I could easily take the Reddit alien and move him onto anywhere I want him to start off in the scene. And I can also easily shrink and grow him as I want. I'm going to undo all that. And that's it. That's all it is. I'm going to go into that symbol. And inside that symbol I have all the separate body parts all laid out for me nicely. I have the ball of the Reddit alien, the two antenna pieces to lead to the ball. I have the head, the body, the upper arm. I have the lower arm and the hand placed together because it looked like the best solution at the time for this character. Same with this side, the upper arm and the lower arm and the hand are together in this symbol. The two legs and the 2 feet. And if you go into the head symbol, you'll notice I also have the ears laid out separately, the eyes, the eyebrows, and the mouth. And that's pretty much it for the whole character. That's all the broken pieces. You'll notice that I have the 2 antenna pieces separated, and that's because I'd like to have the ability to rotate the antenna as I'd like. So now I want to animate this character. Let's go back to scene 1. I want to animate this whole character. So what do? The first thing I want to do is, and this is a very important part, is let's go back out. I'm going to go into that Reddit alien file and I'm going to copy it. So drag it over, copy here. And I'm going to rename this animation test. So now I have this animation test file. Now the reason I copied this Reddit alien file over to animation test is because I don't want to ruin the original Reddit alien rig that I have. I want to keep them safe and stored. And usually what I would do is I copy this over to another file and name that Reddit alien .backup.fla, and that will keep it safe from me from ruining it, and I can always go back to it and change it back. So once again, it's really important to keep this file safe. Let's go into my animation test, and this is where I'm going to be animating the scene. So I have my Reddit alien open and my animation test open. I'm just going to go ahead and close the Reddit alien.fla to make sure that I don't change that. It's asking me to save changes, so I'm just going to go ahead and click no. And this is my Reddit alien. So now you can also notice I added 100 frames to each layer, and that's just kind of to keep things easy to see. You'll obviously have to change that number around as you're animating, but for now we'll just leave it at 100 frames. Now all my animation is going to be done inside the Reddit alien symbol. So let's go inside of that symbol. And for this animation, what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to animate the character looking from the left to the right. So one of the first things you want to do is select the whole body, hold Alt, and drag it to the end of the timeline. Now you could drag it as far or as close as you want. The reason I'm doing that is so I keep a copy of the whole Reddit alien on the last frame, so in case I need to go back to it, so I can have the original Reddit alien in his standing pose with his original scaling and size. Once you start manipulating the animation for the Reddit alien, you'll notice that you'll have to skew and rotate and scale, and that will start messing up his proportions. So I always like to keep a blank slate of the Reddit alien always at the end, and even sometimes I'll make a few copies of it, just to be safe that I don't ruin one of the copies. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to want him looking to the left to start. So I'm going to take his head along with the antenna, and I'm going to flip it by going to Modify, Transform, Flip Horizontally. And now he's looking the other direction, so I'm going to have him kind of move a little bit more further to the left. And the reason I'm doing that is the more broad the animation is, the easier it is to tween in between the two, and it'll look a lot more smooth. So go ahead and do that. I'm also going to go ahead and rotate it a bit, and for now I'm just going to copy over one of our default animation standing positions, and I'm going to copy it over to the next frame over, so I can kind of scrub between the two. So for this one, I'm going to move the leg over slightly, and if you hold shift you can lock it to the y-axis. Drag the leg over, move the body and rotate it over. Drag the 2 arms over, drag the hand over, and kind of rotate the leg into place. I'm going to try cleaning it up as much as I can. Now you'll notice there's this huge gap right now between the leg and the foot. There's this kind of black line going into it. Now if you like that black line, then go ahead and leave it. Just make sure there's no little white area showing that there's nothing drawn in between the two. So that looks kind of okay. What I'm going to want to do for this look is I'm going to kind of bend this arm over so that it's kind of like he's using his arm to kind of lean. And for this frame, I'm going to want him to have a worried look. So he's kind of looking to the left, all worried. And I'm going to do that a little bit later. I'm just telling you right now that that's kind of what I'm leaning towards for this animation. And I'm kind of feeling rotating this body a little bit more, moving the two arms over, and moving the head over there. Let's move the antenna over too. So I kind of have the first frame sort of set up, and this is kind of how I want his animation to look. And there are a few problems, and of course if you spend more time with it, you can change it to your liking and make it look really pretty. But for the interest of time, I'm just going to go ahead and leave it as so. Now for the next frame, I'm looking to the right. Now I can, if I wanted to, just animate him straight to the standing pose, but I'm going to have him kind of with his feet kind of in the same position. So I'm going to move this leg back. I'm going to make him lean kind of into that direction. I'm going to have the two arms, and everything is subjective. You can animate however you like. So I'm just going to have this arm over here, kind of up higher, and rotate this arm. There you go. I think that looks okay for me. I'm going to move this leg over, kind of skew it, skew this body, and move this leg over, kind of like so. Maybe skew the body up a bit more there. And the antenna seems to be popped out, so let's pop it back into place around where I want it to be. And there you have it. I have him looking one to the left and frame two to the right. And now, like I said, once again, that this animation isn't exactly the prettiest animation, but I did my best to kind of make it as pretty as possible with time in mind. And once again, my look is pretty broad. As you can see, his whole head moves over pretty significantly from one side to the other, and that will kind of help add in and make it look more believable as it's animating between the two. And for this animation, I'm going to kind of move the arm down a bit and straighten so it doesn't look too much like the first frame. So for now, I'm just going to go ahead and go into that symbol, and I have the head set to this frame. And this is kind of like the default face frame. I'm just going to go ahead and select the whole face and copy it over one frame later. So now I have the exact copy of the face over one frame. And for this frame, I'm going to want to go ahead and change the facial expressions to my liking. So, for instance, I could skew and rotate, or I can draw the character, but for sake of time, I'm just going to skew all the shapes. So I'm going to make his eyebrows look more worried for this pose. So I'm going to make it more worried, kind of like by bending the eyebrows slightly. I'm skewing and rotating to kind of accommodate what I want to do. And once again, you're free to manipulate the object as much as you want. So I can rotate it, drag it around, pop it right off the body if really that's what I want to do. But I'm going to leave it like that for now. And I'm also going to skew the eyes slightly to kind of give that more kind of like worried look. Now for the mouth, I do want to change the mouth a bit, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go into that mouth symbol, and as you can see, there's only one frame in that mouth symbol. I'm going to add another one by hitting F7. I'm going to select my brush tool, make sure I have black selected, and I'm going to make sure I have pressure sensitivity turned on. I'm going to draw a little bit just to kind of see if I have the right brush size, and it seems to be kind of okay. I'm going to make it one step larger. And for the worried look, I'm just going to have his mouth kind of like that. And for the inside of the mouth, I'm just going to pick a really dark red. And I'm going to go out of that symbol by double clicking off that layer. And now if I want to switch this mouth over to the next one, once again, if you look at that mouth symbol, it's looping options set to single frame, which is great. And my first I want to set to 2 because I created the mouth on the second frame. If you go into that frame, you'll notice that the second frame is the frame that I created the mouth on, the worried mouth, that is. And there you go. So now I have a normal face and a worried face. And I can scrub between the two by hitting the left arrow and the right arrow keys for scrubbing. And I think that'll be all. But on top of that, I also want his ears to look worried. And I think that's important in animation to make kind of the whole body express that feeling. So right now if I scrub between the two, it looks like the ears don't even move at all. So what I can do is I can go into the ears and I can kind of droop them a bit. And that will give that worried type look. Maybe drag them down a bit. Right? And now that's kind of like the worried Reddit alien look. So let's go out of that. And let's go into this frame. Now, how come his face changed back? So if you guessed because his first is not set to 2, then you're right. And there you go, I set my first to 2, and now that means it's playing the second frame of that symbol. And once again, make sure your options are set to single frame. Now, on top of that, I also want his antenna to look kind of sad too, because that's kind of will add to the whole effect. So to do that, I'll kind of droop the antenna down slightly and rotate it over. And I think that looks kind of okay. Maybe if I rotate it this way a bit more. Now I think the ball is on top of the head, so I can even put the ball on top of the head to kind of add that depth feeling. I'll just put it right there because I think that looks a little bit better in terms of silhouette. And there you go. I'm going to keep that antenna like so. And there's a Reddit alien's worried kind of look. And we're going to have to make him look from the worried position all the way back to this position, which is kind of like maybe the determined, angry, or powerful kind of look. So it's kind of an expression change between the two. So let's go ahead and go into that head. Now once again, that head was on the first symbol, or sorry, rather the first frame. So if you can see, I can just hold that head, hold Alt, and drag it over 2 frames. So now the third frame is going to be the frame I can manipulate to change that head frame. Now I want you guys to be very wary. If you go into a symbol, let's say I go into the eye symbol, or the eyebrow symbol, and I have the drawing of the eyebrow over here. If I go ahead and I manipulate the eyebrow over here on the second frame, because this is the second eyebrow, right, and I do stuff like that to it, and I rotate it, right, and I do all kinds of weird stuff to it to change it to the way I like it. If I go out of that symbol, and it looks fine in that frame, but if I go back to my first frame, you'll notice that I changed it also on the first frame. That's not the original eyebrow that I had on the first frame here, and that's because I changed the eyebrow's second frame over. So it's going to change all the animations where the eyebrow is on the second frame. You're going to want to not do that. Every time you make a new symbol, you want it to be on a new blank frame. So let's undo all that. And let's actually go ahead and make a new eyebrow the proper way. So now on this frame, I'm going to go into that eyebrow. I'm going to make another blank frame, or I could just copy both of those over. And here on this frame 3, I can go ahead and manipulate the eyebrow however I'd like. So for this one, I wanted, like I said, to be determined, kind of angry. So I'm going to bring his eyebrow down, right? His eyebrow shadow, I can kind of rotate or erase or however I want to manipulate it. This is all up to you. Right now I'm kind of picking the fastest approach out of it. So that's kind of like the angry eyebrow. And the reason I didn't just skew the whole eyebrow outside of the layer like I did on frame 2 of the animation is because I'm going to add a little bit more to the eyebrow. I'm going to get some black, and on frame 3, make sure I'm on frame 3, I'm going to add kind of like the wrinkles of being a mad eyebrow. I'm going to go back out, and now once again it popped back because my first is not set to 3 because that's the frame I set it on. And there you go, I have the mad eyebrow. Right now it's only one mad eyebrow. We're going to want 2 mad eyebrows. So let's go back into this one. Now, you know what I could do? I could try testing frame 3 on this one too to see what happens. And hey, you know, it doesn't look that bad. I could actually go ahead and keep that. So once again, change it to frame 3. And I'm going to grow it out a bit. So I'm going to scale it out, kind of drag it down. So what do you know? I changed the second eyebrow and it looks great on the first eyebrow. That's kind of like the bonus of copying your symbols onto the other side of the face or the other side of the body. As you could see, if you look at my lower arm and hand symbol, it's the same as this symbol over here. So if you make a hand on here, it might look great on the hand over here too. So it's good to have. Now for the angry, I'm going to kind of raise his ears out a bit because it is kind of angrier looking. And for the mouth, I could do a bunch of things. I could draw a new mouth like I did before, or maybe I could try to manipulate this mouth so kind of like looks nice, and I think that looks great. And when I popped out of that symbol, right now I'm in the Reddit alien layer. Once again, that face went back because I'm not on frame 3 it was. There you go. And for the antenna over here, maybe I'll have it a little bit higher or something. We'll see how that looks. So now if I press the left or right arrow, I can kind of scrub between the two. And I can kind of see I want the head kind of tilted a bit more. I think that looks kind of nice. Right? I'm going to kind of take the whole body and skew it a little bit. And I do that a lot. That's kind of like my signature thing. I kind of skew everything a little bit, and it kind of adds a little bit of the more classical feel I feel when you do that. Move everything over. Grow that a little bit. There you go. Scrub. And I'm going to want the antenna a bit more here. And for this antenna, I want it to look a little bit more different as well. So I'm just going to give that kind of look. And I think that looks a little bit more worried for an antenna look. Now the one more thing I want to do is I kind of want this hand over here. I don't want it to be the closed fist over here. I want it to be the open fist. So what I did before is I just stretched out the arm of it because it did look like it was going a little bit short. So you can do whatever you really like. Don't be constrained to the size of the symbol. So I'm going to go into this layer. I'm going to add another hand. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this hand over. And if you notice in my symbols, I separated the black line from the gray line. You don't have to do that. You can just put them together. But that's how I decided to create my symbols. I'm going to erase this part of the hand. And using my black on the top layer, I'm going to erase a little bit more. And now on the top layer, because I know that's where my black line is, I'm going to go ahead and draw in a different type of hand, and I guess I'm going to have more of a fist going on for this one. And I think that's okay. So I guess I changed it more into a fist kind of sideways look. So I'm going to go ahead to go into the bottom layer, select the fill color, and color in the rest. And there you go. So once again, I could have just drawn everything out on one layer. I didn't have to. I could have had one blank layer and they were both on it with both the drawing layer and the fill color on that one layer. And the other layer would be a blank frame. And so let's go back out, and once again I'm going to change that to frame 3. And the arm seems to be a little bit short, and that's because when I did draw it, I drew it a little bit short. But I'm going to go ahead and compromise and stick with it. And instead I'm just going to go ahead and go into that symbol and stretch it out a bit. Now, as I said earlier, you can go ahead and make that look a lot prettier. Right now I'm just kind of rushing it, so feel free to spend some time making things look really nice. I'm going to bend this hand a little bit more. So there you go. I think that's great for the animation I want to create, and we're going to have to start getting it to move now. So now that we have two extreme frames going on the way we like them, we're going to have to stretch them out to kind of the length we think it's going to take for the animation to play out. Right now my animation is set to 24 frames per second. As you can see, it says over here 24. And I'm going to assume that the animation will take, let's say, 35 frames. And that's going to be okay for now, right? So what I like to do sometimes is just go ahead and select that whole center of that layer, right click it, and go to create classic tween just to see what would happen. So there you have it. Kind of everything kind of doesn't work properly. It kind of pops. That's not what we want, but it kind of gives me an idea of what's happening between the two. So we can use some of this. As you can see, the legs are kind of okay. If you watch the legs aren't doing anything too weird. The head is. The arms aren't doing anything too weird, so that's kind of works. The only main problem I notice is the head and the antenna are just kind of flipping over, and it's not working really well. But we can still use the rest of that body. So as you've seen in my previous lesson, what you're going to want to do is add 2 frames right in the middle, and that will kind of be the area where everything flips from one picture to the next. So we'll go ahead and press F6, and now we have keyframes in the center and one after the center. Right? So now we know that the head is causing a problem along with the antenna, so select both of those. You'll see that it's these 4 layers over here. So that would be the antenna, antenna 2, the head, and antenna 1. So select these 4, hold Alt and drag them over to that first frame. And you're going to want to do the same on the other side. So grab these 4 over here, and as you can see, it's selected the whole head and the antenna. I'm going to hold Alt and drag them over to the second mid frame. And as you can see, you lose the tween when you do that. You can just right click and go to create classic tween. So now if we play it out, that happens. And that's pretty good. That's what I want. I'm going to go ahead and select this whole beginning area over here. I'm going to set my ease to in, and this whole second part of the animation, and go to ease out. So now it'll be kind of a bit of a quicker animation, and in that fast area is where the flipping will happen. And that looks kind of okay, right? I kind of want it to be a little bit quicker, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this top area over here where the timeline numbers are. I'm going to hit Shift and press F5 and kind of shorten it up so that the animation is a little bit quicker and more snappier. And the snappier and the quicker the animation, the less people are going to notice the flip that happens in between the animations. So let's go in now and see what we could do. I'm going to zoom into our character a little bit so he's a little bit larger and easier to see. So now we know the head needs to kind of go around here. I'm just going to do this really quickly, and this head is going to go about here. Now the space between these two isn't big enough for me. I want the space to be a lot bigger. So what I can do is I can just take the whole body and kind of skew it over to the left side, and that's kind of like a very fast, cheat way of doing it. So right now the space between these 2 frames is much larger. And for this frame, I can also skew it over to the other side, so it's closer to this last frame. And now if I kind of play it through, it's a much larger distance from the 2 middle frames, as opposed to before where the body was a lot closer. And the bigger the distance, kind of the nicer that flip will kind of happen, because that is the fastest part of the animation. This is kind of something I learned over time as I was animating. So now everything seems to be going kind of okay. But the only problem is that the hand over here, if you look closely, it pops as you reach the last frame. And that's because we didn't copy that hand over. Now instead of copying the hand over, we kind of like the animation that's doing right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and select that hand. That's in the ladder of the mid frames. So I have that hand selected, and when I click the hand symbol, it will come up with these options over here for looping options, and I want that to be 2. So now in that mid part, the hand switches over. And my bad, I want that to be 3, not 2. So let's play that over, and hey, that looks pretty good, right? So the hand changed barely, but as you could see, it has a smooth transition. I could have had the hand open or not. Let's go ahead and change this arm. Let's say I didn't like this animation anymore, and I wanted this hand to be open as opposed to it being closed off like so. So I'm just going to do that right now to show you what you would have to go through if you want to change your animation slightly. I'm going to go into that hand symbol, and now remember, you always have to make a duplicate and add it to a blank area in the animation, and that's to make sure that you don't overwrite any of your other animations. I'm going to use that same hand, so I copy that same hand over to the last frame of that hand symbol, and I'm going to go ahead and erase the whole fist and arm part of it. And you know what, I'm even going to go ahead and erase the fill color. So we're only going to be dealing with the top layer, which is just going to be the line layer, just to show you a different way of doing it. And for this hand, I want it to be kind of open, kind of like he's kind of prepared, and that's kind of okay for now. I'm gonna go one frame back so I can select the fill color of that arm and hand. Use my brush tool, kind of close off that gap, and hit my paint bucket tool and fill it in. Now if you noticed in this layer, in this frame, it's just a fill color with the line, and that is kind of the simpler way of doing it. I didn't have to put the line on top of the fill, and this is the example, and the bottom layer is a blank frame. Let's go back out of that symbol. We want to change that symbol number to 4. There you go. And you also going to want to change that middle beginning frame to 4 as well. There it is. You have his animation of his hand kind of going from open to close as he's doing the expression change. So once again, you want to make sure that all of this tween over here on the first part of the animation is set to ease in, and the second part is set to ease out. So that means it goes from slow and then speeds up, and the fastest point is that little middle point, and then it slows back down. And to make it a little bit better, so now it kind of is an ease in, but it's not kind of doing it as much as I'd like it to, and I'm all the way at -100. So that means that this is the max you could do it, but that's not the case. If you look over to the right, there's this little pencil icon over here right beside the ease options, and it says edit easing. If you go ahead and you click that, this is the ease tangent, and this shows you how much of an ease you're creating, and as you can see, it's not actually that much. It's pretty close to it being a straight line, which means there's no ease. So that my teacher liked to say, the flatter the line is, the more dead the character is. So if the line is perfectly flat, so if we had this line going straight down the bottom over here, as opposed to going at an angle, so let's say this area of the line right now is pretty straight, that means that he's more dead, which means he's not moving. The more this line is kind of going straight up, is the faster it's moving. So over here would be the fastest area where the animation is happening. So we know that we want this beginning part of the animation to go from slow to fast. So let's make it kind of like so. I think this is a good ease right here. It has a nice kind of arc to it. Hit OK, and as you can see now he's going slow and he's kind of speeding up a lot more. And same over here, I'm going to go into ease out, and you can kind of see the ease out they did isn't that great, but I can go ahead and manipulate it a bit, and there you go. Now it's more of an arc that I want to use. Press OK, and now it's going faster to slower than it did before. So if we play it through, it's a lot more smoother. Okay, great. So we got the animation. I'm looking from the left to the right, but let's spruce it up a bit. Let's make it a little bit more interesting than it is right now. So what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to go into these two frames, and we're going to want to manipulate them to be kind of different, because we don't always want things to go straight from one to the other. Let's say we want him to crouch a bit as he leans towards the angry pose. So just as a quick example, I'm going to grab the head and the antenna. I'm going to move it down a bit. I'm going to want to do this for this middle frame and the middle frame after it. And you got to make sure they're kind of down about the same amount. So that's about right. So if I play it now, as you can see, he's kind of lowering his head as he's doing that take. And yeah, that's working really well. It looks pretty good, but you notice that the hands aren't doing the right thing, and we're going to have to do that for the rest of the body. So the head looks kind of right, and that kind of leads the whole animation. So I'm going to go ahead and select that whole head and lock all those layers so we don't manipulate them by accident. And I can even turn them onto outline so I can select all the symbols behind that head. I'm going to select those arms, kind of bring them down. I'm going to kind of rotate the shoulder up a bit. And I'm going to squash the body and stretch it a bit, because as you can see, the body's only one symbol at this point. Now you could see that the body goes into the head a lot in the animation over here, but you don't see it, so no one really notices it, and the animation happens really quickly. So you can get away with a few things if you're smart about them. So I'm going to go ahead and fix this animation up. I'm going to bend the legs a bit by squashing and stretching. Now this isn't exactly the best way of doing it, but for the sake of time it works, and if no one notices it, then hey, good for you. So I think that's about alright. I'm going to stretch the body out a bit more. Right, now let's go unhide that and kind of scrub the animation. So now the beginning part is working well. He's kind of like squashing down. I'm going to want to do that for the second part of the last keyframe as well, or the middle keyframe. So I'm going to go ahead and squash in the legs, move the arms down. I'll rotate the arms up a bit so he's kind of like raising his fists as he's going down. And stretch and squash the body a bit. Now I am cheating a lot in this animation, and I don't recommend this being the best way of animating your character, but it seems to work so far. So I'm going to raise this arm a bit. I'm kind of fixing that last frame a bit because I do want it to be a little bit different looking. And there you go. Let's see what that looks like. So that looks kind of good, right? It's not bad. It's kind of has a nice feel to it. Now let's add some overlap. We have this antenna thing over here, and I'm gonna unlock those antenna layers. And as he's coming down, maybe I want the antenna to kind of go up a bit as overlap. Now, if you want to study overlap, you're gonna have to do some animation research. It is a fantastic animation technique, and it does add a lot of spicing up to the animation. Now also I know in 3D the antenna would kind of rotate too, so it would be interesting if I got the antenna to kind of rotate slightly as he's turning his head. And I'm going to move the antenna a bit closer to here. I'm going to rotate this a bit more, and I'm kind of scrubbing, I'm kind of seeing what I like and what I don't like, and it does take a lot of practice, but once you get the hang of it, it's a lot of fun. And I'm going to rotate actually this down a bit because I want it to kind of overshoot. And you know what? I'm going to want the antenna to be down here because I'm planning on doing a sort of bounce. Now I am changing the animations a lot, and I think that is kind of like the magic of computers, is that you can change them on the fly and see what you like and see what you don't like, and you could work with what works, so you don't have to be stuck with a particular animation. So I like that, and the reason I made the antenna kind of go down is because it gives a kind of overlap feel. Now that I like the animation, but what I want is I want there to be a bit of bounce for the antenna. So what I'm going to do is, for the antenna layers, and only the antenna layers, I'm going to add some extra keyframes over here and over here. And that's going to be kind of like the aftershock of the antenna reaching over, because the antenna is a little bit softer. So I am going to raise the antenna slightly, and it comes back down to its original position in the last frame. So in the last frame I actually raised the antenna further than it should, and that would be kind of like the overshoot. And this would be the rest of the animation. I'm going to add ease to this one, so create classic tween for the antenna layers. And I'm going to kind of stretch it over, and let's see what that looks like. And I think the ease for this one is going to have to be an ease in. And it's kind of working. It kind of looks a little weird. Now I think it's looking weird because it's moving a little too much. So what I like doing sometimes is, instead of going into this symbol over here and lowering it, or trying to accommodate it so it looks closer to the last frame we have on this on frame 23 over here, is I like actually just keying right in between the two and dragging it over that last frame. So I'm going to do the same over here. And that's kind of like a little trick I do that saves time if the movement is too strong. I think I like that. That looks kind of nice. It's kind of subtle. I can get also the whole body to move down slightly. So let's do that. I'm going to select the whole, make another key over there. And I'm going to drag the head down slightly, the antenna down slightly, and the whole body is going to be kind of shifted down slightly. So I'm going to kind of move everything down a bit. And I think that was all in ease in. Ease in. There you go. Let's play it out, see how it looks. Not bad. I like it. So there you have it. This is the first animation, and you can go into it at this point. This is what my first steps to animating is, doing this kind of process, getting my initial keyframes, which would be this frame over here. So this is my initial keyframes, and then I would go ahead and animate them kind of switching between the two, which is these two middle frames. And these two are kind of like the mid frames. They're kind of transitioning between the two. And then afterwards, sometimes I'll add a settle, or I'll add some follow through afterwards or during. Once this process is complete and you have it saved out and you're super happy with it, you can go in and, as an advanced technique, start manipulating the whole character around so that it starts looking a little bit nicer by adding follow through, adding all kinds of things, and it will mess up your whole timeline. It won't have this nice straight key look, but the animations will look significantly better. And once again, this is for an advanced technique. If you haven't taken any animation lessons, might want to not try it out, but I just had to say it. Anyways, so now we're done with our animation on the Reddit alien symbol. If we go back out, we know that the animation lasts, let's say, up to here, frame 50. So if I go back out, and now I'm in my scene 1, I want to remove all the frames up to frame 50. So I'm going to hold shift and press F5. So now our scene 1 only spans out to frame 50. Let's go to the first frame, hit enter, and there's our animation. So there you have it. Here's a very, I guess, mediocre, simple animation lesson. Now there's a lot more advanced things you could also do, which is if you want this arm to go in front of like a certain part of the body that it doesn't. For instance, if I wanted this arm to go in front of this head, that starts becoming a little bit more complicated. So I did keep things simple by not overlapping anything that wasn't already overlapping too much. And I didn't rotate the whole body, but once again, it's an advanced technique. If you want to start rotating the whole body, and you could pretty much animate anything you'd like in Flash if you're willing to devote and spend the time to making it look good. So now that everything is all set up, my Reddit alien is animated, my scene 1 is spanned out to the last frame. If you hold Control and press Enter, that'll export out your Swift file. And if you like it, go ahead and go to File, click Save, minimize that window down, and if you look over here, we have our animation test.swift file and our animation test.fla that we just created. And you can open that up and check out your animation. I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson, and I hope to see you again. Take care.